Hey guys, welcome back to Home Groups. My name's Nick and I'm super excited to be with you today. Hopefully you've been able to enjoy the beautiful weather that we've been having. 60s and 70s in March, that is fantastic. And so hopefully you've been able to get outside today, maybe tomorrow, maybe just to enjoy just being in the sun and feeling the warmth that just kind of coming back into our community. It's a great opportunity just to enjoy this beautiful weather. So we are in a series called Liked and we are wrapping it up tonight, but before we get into our topic, I want to remind you about Camp Orchard Hill. This summer, we have an awesome opportunity to go out to Camp Orchard Hill and participate in their Missions Week. It's July 11th through the 17th, and we are really excited for this. You can sign up online. All the information's on our Instagram or our Facebook page. We've sent out multiple emails about it as well, so make sure you guys sign up as soon as possible. It's $450, but don't let the amount scare you. If you need financial assistance, just ask. We are willing and able to help you out with this. And we want you to go, so make sure you sign up because spots are limited and they are closing fast. We are over halfway filled right now. So make sure you sign up as soon as possible to get your spot secured for our trip. Like I said, we are wrapping up our series called Liked. Over the past couple of weeks, we kind of took an introductory look at this series, and then we talked about our true value last week in Jesus, where we find our true value, how we find it in who God says we are, not in who this world says we are. And so tonight we're going to be wrapping up by looking at how we can be likable like Jesus. Now let me ask you a question. What makes you likable? Like before we even get into this topic of being likable like Jesus, like what makes you likable? Well, let's think about it. Maybe it's your friendships, right? Maybe it's all the people that you hang out with. Maybe it's your friendships. Maybe it's your personality, like even outgoing personality, and like you're just really engaging, you're really funny, and people love to be around you, right? Maybe it's your grades, right? You're the smart person, so everybody likes you. Like you're like in the top of your class, and so everybody's like, oh, like you're super intelligent. I should be your friend because then you can help me be smart, right? Or maybe it's like our possessions, right? Maybe it's the car or the clothes, or maybe it's the new phone that we have, right? The possessions that we own. Or maybe it's our social media representation that makes us likable. The content that we post, like the different selfies or the pictures of ourselves doing fun things, maybe that's what makes us likable. But let's take this question a little bit deeper, okay? Maybe this is like what makes us likable is defined by society or by culture. But let's ask the question then, how do you know you're likable? And like, how do you know if you are actually likable? Like, if these things make you likable, how do you know? Maybe it's by social approval. Maybe it's by like everybody like affirming you and being like, yeah, you're doing the right thing, or like just championing you on. Or maybe it's by social media reactions and engagements. Maybe it's by the likes or the comments or the happy face emojis to everything that you post, right? Perhaps that's how you measure if you're likable. Maybe, again, it goes back to those friendships and the popularity. The more friends you have means the more likable you are. Or maybe it's by the popularity, like what friend group you're a part of or what social group you're a part of that elevates your likability and status. Maybe it's just by recognition. Like when you do something, everybody's like, oh, you're the best, right? You're the best soccer player, the best lacrosse player. Oh, you do awesome at softball, right? Oh, you're the most like intelligent person in our class. You're going to be valedictorian for sure. Oh man, you're so funny, right? Maybe that's how we know we're likable. Or maybe just by the approval of others, right? The approval. Everybody's like, oh, no matter what you do, like it's okay, like just be you and just do that. And like these are all the things that society tells us, like that's how we know we're likable, that's how we measure likability. But there's an inherent problem with this. You see, the problem is this, it's what we've been talking about the past couple of weeks. It's all these descriptions, actions, and reactions, they are all temporary and based upon changing individuals and circumstances. Do you notice that? Like if we were to go back and to look at these things, right? These all change. Social approval changes depending on what social approval wants to value, right? Social media, that could change in a heartbeat. You post the wrong thing and all those comments go away, all the likes go away, maybe it becomes critical comments, right? Friendships ebb and flow, popularity ebbs and flows. Once you leave high school, popularity is going to be very different. Recognition, approval, like that's all going to change based on upon what culture, society, other people dictate to be approval worthy or to be recognition worthy. And so that's the problem. But like, what do we do with that? Like, what's the solution? Well, the solution is this, is we should measure our likability by how we represent Jesus, who is the source of all love, grace, compassion, and hope. Let me just kind of break this down a little bit for us, okay? Here's the thing. If we measure our likability by what other people, by what society, by what culture says, we will never be fulfilled. We will never be people who know our true value and worth, because it always changes. It ebbs and flows. And if we were to figure out, like, if we're likable, the only way that we can do that is to find that within Christ. And here's what I mean when we talk about being likable like Jesus, okay? Like, I'm not saying that everybody has to be your best friend, that everybody has to think you're awesome. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying here is that as followers of Jesus, when we know that our true value and worth is in Him, we should be living differently and seeking to engage others because of how Jesus has changed our lives. See, we should be living lives that bring people to Jesus. Like, we should be likable because people see Jesus in us. We should be likable because people see a change in our lives. We shouldn't be likable because of our status, our grades, our social media presence. Like, those are all fine in and of themselves. But those should not be the definitive quality that draw people to us. It should be Jesus. And so tonight what I want to do is I want to say, okay, how can we be like Jesus? How can we actually be individuals that radiate the love of Jesus, that when people see us, they go, I want what they have? You see, because that's the natural outworking of knowing our value and worth in Jesus. It should change how we live. It should change how we engage this world. And what I should do then is I should draw people to us, not because of who we are, but because of who Christ is in us. And so let's talk a little bit about what it's like to be like Jesus. First of all, we live differently. We do good works, we care for others, and we put God first. Let's unpack that a little bit. When we understand our true value and worth is in God, it changes everything about us. It changes how we interact with people, it changes who we interact with, it changes how we engage with our culture and society, it changes how we serve. Like, when we know our value and worth, it should radically alter who we are. And some of the outworkings of this living differently comes in doing good works, like doing things for other people. It comes from caring for others, caring for people that society forgets about. It comes about in putting God first, about living for Him fully, about not worrying about, like, do I have all the right things? Do I dress the right way? Do I have all the recognition that I want? It's going, no, is God first in my life and those things secondary? In fact, check out what we read in Matthew 5:14-16. Jesus says to them, He says, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Now, check this out. Jesus is talking to His disciples, followers of Him. And He has told them, He's like, you are mine, and I will forever be yours. He's already established their value and worth. He goes, look, here's what you do. He goes, because you have this value and worth, you're different now. You're like this light on a hill, this light that can't be, like, extinguished. And like a light, when you put it on, it doesn't just, like, become this little insignificant thing. No, it permeates the room that you light it in. When you turn on a light in a dark room, all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, there's light, right? That's what we do. We're drawn to that light. And Jesus is like, man, that's who we are. When we know our value and worth is in Him, we should be that light and we should live differently. People should see that in us. And then part of that living differently is we shine that to others. Like, we care for others. We show them Jesus as we show them the value and worth that He has given us. And then we live it out by doing good deeds and caring for others. But it's not just living differently. It's also about being authentic. It's about being who God created you to be. So let's unpack that a little bit. We've talked about this over the past couple of weeks. Like, God has designed you perfectly. He has made you just the way you should be. But let me ask you this. Are you living out that authentic life that God has called you to? We've done a couple of series over the years. We did one just last year about wearing masks, called The Mask That We Wear. And we talked about how sometimes we put on these masks. And I guess some of my fear is that maybe perhaps you're living your life like I did in high school, where you put on one mask when you're at church and one when you're out in public, and you never get to be yourself. You never get to be who God has called you to be, because for some reason we're still allowing for society and culture and people to define our value and worth. But let me just challenge you to do something. Be you. Be who you truly are. Be who God has created you to be. You see, you are perfect just how God made you. The personality you have, the preference that you have for different things that you find enjoyment in. Like, hey, God created you a certain way. And that's okay. Be you. You don't have to fit the mold of society. Break the mold. Because God broke the mold when He created you. He made you different. He made you just the way you should be. He didn't say you have to fit all these different molds that society says you must fit. He said, no, how you are is perfect. So be authentic. Be who God created you to be. And check this out. Romans 12, 9 through 13 says this. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor. Serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need, and practice hospitality. This is what living authentically looks like. That you are loving what is sincere. You're loving God. You're putting God first. You hate what is evil, what is wrong, what is unjust. You cling to God. You cling to what is good. And then in that, you're devoted to one another. You care for one another. You pursue one another. You honor each other. You don't lack in your passion for God, but you serve Him. And in doing so, you find joy. You find hope. You're patient. Even when times are hard, because I'll be real with you, like as you seek to live like Jesus and to live and to acknowledge who you are, your value and worth in Him, it doesn't mean that life is going to be easy, that everything's going to be okay, that everybody's going to go, oh, okay, we'll just accept that. It's going to be hard. There are going to be moments where people challenge that and push back on it. Maybe people will laugh at you or make fun of you, but you know what? God says be patient in affliction and faithful in prayer, and He will see you through it. And here's the thing, when we're authentic, that means we're living as God has made us and we're living for Him. We care about others. We put others before ourselves. We seek to live for God so that people understand He's the one who's changed our lives. So we're authentic, but we also need to trust God and find rest in Him. Here's what I mean. Like it's easy sometimes to be able to do those things when the going is easy, but we just read like faithful in affliction, right? There are going to be times when it's hard, when it's difficult, when we struggle. But God says that we need to trust Him and find rest in Him. In fact, look at Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Jesus isn't writing, or isn't talking, I guess at this point, to people who life is easy for them. He's talking to people that life is difficult, life is hard. And He's like, look, come to me, and I will give you rest. I'll take that weariness, that burden from you, and here, just take my yoke. It's easy and it's light. He says, look, if you follow me, I'm not going to tell you it's always going to be easy, but I'm going to be the place of refuge for you. Because you find your value and worth in God, that's where you go for your rest and your sustainment and your encouragement. And that's where you find your wholeness. So find your rest and find your peace in God. Trust Him when the going gets hard. When society pulls at you and continues to tell you that your value is based in what they say, or they tell you you're worthless because you don't meet their mold. Rest in God and who He says you are. Know that God gives you peace. That God will carry you. That He will walk with you. And lastly, we need to remember that we have a calling then to love people well. I think the greatest outworking of knowing our true value and worth is sharing that with others, of pointing them to Jesus, of loving them and caring for them like Jesus cares for us. In fact, check out what Jesus writes in Mark 2. So while Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with Him and His disciples, for there were many who followed Him. When the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, saw Him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked His disciples, "Why does Jesus eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said to them, "It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. You see, Jesus at this point had just asked Matthew, or as he was called in some of the Gospels, Levi, to follow him. And Levi dropped everything and followed him. And Levi, Matthew, he was a tax collector. And in Jewish society, tax collectors were like the lowest of the low. And when they use that term sinners, they mean like all these horrible, horrible people that the religious leaders would not have associated with. And Jesus says, you know what? These are the people I came for. These are the people who need me. You see, Jesus didn't come for the people who had it all together, or the people who tried to act like they were all super religious and better than everybody else. He didn't come for that. He came for the people who recognized that they were broken and hurting, the people who needed a doctor. Jesus came for all of us. And what we should be doing is living out that love to others. As we understand that, like, Jesus gives us inherent value and worth because he made us perfectly. The natural outworking of that, the natural response is to love people like Jesus loves us. It's to care for people and to invest in them the way that Jesus invests in our lives. You see, we now have a calling. We get to be the ambassadors. We get to be the people who carry the message of God's love to the world. And so as we understand our value and worth, our natural outworking then is to share that with others. Not to say, hey, look how great I am. It's saying, no, look at what Jesus says about who we are. Look at what God did in my life. Do you know that I have worth and you have worth? Let me show you that. Let me love you because of who God says I am and who God says you are. So guys, my hope is this, is that as we conclude this series tonight, is that you take some time and you've thought through, you've processed like your value and worth. You've understood God's desire to have a relationship with you, how he has intricately and perfectly designed you and given you an identity in him. You matter. You have a place. And part of acknowledging that then is being likable like Jesus, is going out to the world and living as an example of Jesus to our society and culture. We should be different. People should see Jesus in us, and they should want to know why we're different. So may we be people who live differently because we found our value and worth in Christ. Let me pray for you guys. Awesome God, thank you that you've called us into a relationship with you. Thank you that you've brought us into a perfect, right-standing relationship because of Jesus. Thank you for giving us value and worth, even when society tells us, hey, we don't have it. Father, help us to acknowledge our worth and value in you, and for that to define who we are. And God, let that be a transformative aspect in our lives as we live it out. May we love people well. May we live like Jesus to this world. I pray all this in your name. Amen. Hey guys, remember, sign up for Camp Orchard Hill and enjoy this amazing weather. Have a great week. Can't wait to see you guys soon.